Today's webinar is being presented by Alan Gutierrez. Alan is a registered dietitian whose long-standing clinical and research interests include behavioral and environmental nutrition, as well as oral health. His clinical training includes a dietetic internship at Tulane University School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine and student clinician training at the Bastyr Center for Natural Health, a teaching medical clinic of Bastyr University in Seattle, Washington. He has a Master of Science degree in nutrition at Bastyr University and a Bachelor of Science degree in biology at William Paterson University in New Jersey. In addition to his academic and clinical training, Alan has accrued an extensive knowledge of nutritional supplementation and support after having worked in this field for more than a decade. Alan is inspired by the researchers, clinicians, and parents in the autism treatment community. He has worked at the Johnson Center since 2009, providing consultations to families, conducting clinical research, and presenting his work at national and international research conferences. Before we begin the presentation, please note that questions can be typed into your control panel throughout, and time permitting, they will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Also, for those of you that have requested copies of the slides, we cannot send out those slides. However, we do post recordings of all of our free webinars on the Johnson Center YouTube channel. Please search for us on YouTube and subscribe to get full access to all of our recorded webinars. We are currently offering certificates of attendance for this webinar, and a link to complete a short quiz will be emailed to you following the presentation. Now please welcome our presenter, Alan.
Thank you, Nisi, and thank you for joining me today. My talk on clean living for the new year, which I'll focus on ways for us to optimize our health through minimizing our exposure to environmental toxins, all in the framework as New Year's resolutions. Just a reminder that my talk is for purely educational purposes and not meant to take the place of the recommendations or advice of your physician or attending clinician. I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes or so, and I'm going to leave a little time at the end to address any questions that you might have. So like Nisi said, just go ahead and type them in, and she's going to forward them to me, and I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't answer them, I will do my best to get back to you later on. Maybe I have to go to an expert on this. All right. There we go. Oh, something happened to my slide here. Not sure what. Okay. Well, anyway, my presentation has 4 sections. Okay. It has 4 sections, and the first 2 sections, I'll just cover the overview of the impact of environmental toxins on health. If you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of this and really interested in the science, I highly recommend that you go to ARI's YouTube channel. There are a lot of wonderful archived webinars and lecture presentations. So hopefully you can see my screen right now. So I'm in contact with Nisi. I'm not sure if you can actually see my screen. Okay, sorry about technical difficulty here. It looks like I'm going to have to put a pause on this and see what I can do. All right, hopefully you can see my screen now. Okay, so as I was saying, you can go to the ARI YouTube channel and look up webinars and talks that delve into more of the science behind toxicology. There's a wonderful talk given by the president of the Environmental Working Group. That's a good place to start. ARI stands for, if in case you don't know, it's Autism Research Institute, and they have a YouTube channel. Bulk of my presentation is going to look at the 12 resolutions to minimize exposure. And then at the end, I'll just recap for you. Normally, I do presentations with a lot less text on the slides, but I know that this is going to be recorded and it may be used as a reference and resources for you in the future. So I made it easy for you to go back and access this. And like Nisi said, this talk will be archived on the Johnson Center YouTube channel. Now, if we were to do a search on PubMed, and PubMed is kind of the medical version of Google, and we put in things like toxic exposures and say other conditions like cancer or neurological disorders, we'd see a lot of studies pop up. In fact, there's a major risk associated with exposure to toxins, and they include everything from impaired brain fetal development to nerve damage, endocrine disruption. That refers to the endocrine system, which is responsible for the secretion of hormones and also for maintaining hormonal balance. So that includes estrogen, testosterone, and insulin as well. We do know in terms of pediatrics that there's mounting evidence from epidemiological studies showing that early life exposure to pesticides is linked to pediatric cancers, decreased cognitive function, and behavioral problems. And there are animal studies that kind of underpin these epidemiological studies. In other words, they're giving us we can see firsthand what happens to development in animals when they're exposed to these toxins. So, so this research is starting to mount more and more and more. So, okay, so I was just told that you can see the meeting notes at the bottom. I don't have any meeting notes. I apologize for this. I'm going to try to fix this one more time. Okay, apparently that's better now. Sorry about that. Okay, so the 10 most common pollutants I put up here, pesticides is near the top. So I'll talk a little mostly about pesticides, but we'll also be talking about phthalates, which come from plastics, mold and fungal toxins. Of course, you probably heard about asbestos. And there's heavy metals as well, and that includes cadmium, arsenic, lead, and mercury. So what can we do to minimize our exposure here? So we want to think on an individual level here, and we want to see how the immediate environment impacts us on the individual level, and also we want to see how the indirect environment impacts us, and then finally how legislation and policy affects all of those areas. Now, for my talk today, I'm just going to talk what we can do on an individual level in the immediate environment. But I just wanted to indicate that there are other areas to optimizing our health here. And so an example of an indirect environment would be, say, the Fukushima nuclear reactor site spilling radiation into the ocean. We're starting to see that some of this radiation is starting to wash up in other areas of the world, and this is really unfortunate. So that's that's an example of the indirect environment there. And then I recommend that you get politically active if you aren't already in legislation and policy. You'd be surprised how much you can do nationally, internationally, and also don't forget what you can do locally. Sometimes that's even more rewarding, is to see the changes that you can make locally through political action. Yeah, I'm not going to be talking about that. That's a whole lecture in itself. So my number one resolution is to get an objective set of eyes. And I think it behooves you to work with a practitioner or a clinician that will provide an objective assessment of your health or your child's health, and then prescribe the proper tests as well. Because I like this quote here: "If you're not testing, then you're guessing." one of the common problems that I see families do is just try all different types of detox protocols, or they'll try different types of products that are out on the market, not really knowing what they're addressing, kind of taking a one-size-fits-all. And this rarely is done effectively. So it's best to use tests, like, for instance, you can test for heavy metal toxicity. This would be helpful. Okay. Sorry, I was just getting messages from Nisi here telling me that everything is looking good. All right. Hopefully won't have any more interruptions. Okay. So these tests are very helpful because they can put you on track for individualized medical care, individualized nutritional care. I'll tell you, I've been doing this for years, and every child is different. There's certainly overlap in theoretical aspects of physiology, metabolism, biochemistry, but we have to treat each child as an N of one, as they say in the research world. So where can you find a practitioner to practice, say, functional medicine? You can go to functionalmedicine.org, and they have a search engine there. You can put in your zip code, and what will pop up will be practitioners in your area. Another thing you can do too is ask around. So if you go to support group, ask practitioners. Excuse me, ask families that are working with practitioners, and see what their experience was like. That's a good place to start. If you aren't part of a support group, maybe your first resolution is to join a support group. Okay. The number one thing you can do to reduce your exposure to toxins is to eat clean. Food is the major vehicle for all the toxins that we are ingesting, bar none. And so we want to start low on the food chain here. We want to look at our fruits and vegetables. Now, you might have seen this before. This is a list generated by the Environmental Working Group. On the one side here, you have the Dirty Dozen. And these are the fruits and vegetables that you definitely want to buy organic. And in particular, we're concerned about those chlorine-based pesticides, especially about the ones that I had mentioned before with the American Academy of Pediatrics paper there. And you notice with these, the Dirty Dozen, that the skins of these fruits and vegetables are actually very thin. So there's a common denominator there. So with thin skin, they're more susceptible to damage by pests and bugs, so they get heavily sprayed. Now on the other side here, the Clean 15, you have fruits and vegetables that are not sprayed as heavily. And you'll notice that most of them have a thick skin, like pineapple, mango, avocado, onion, kiwi, cabbage has a really hardy skin, watermelon, of course. So these are safer to get if you can't source them, if you can't find an organic source. or if you're trying to fit into your food budget. Um, Either way, you want to wash your fruits and vegetables, whether they come from the dirty dozen or the clean 15, and I'll tell you why. Um, there are residues on the skin. So you're thinking, well, the skin, I'm not going to eat the skin. I just throw that away. I'm not going to eat the skin of the avocado. Thing is that you handle them with your hands, and then potentially your hands can transfer them to the foods that you're eating, or to your mouth, or to other people around you, or to your child. The other thing too is that when you cut into an avocado, or cut into an apple, or pineapple, or mango, you, in a sense, drag in what's on the surface into the portion that you're going to eat. That's something you certainly want to avoid. Now, as we move up the food chain here, you want to make sure that your animal proteins are as clean as they can be. Probably heard by now it's best to get organic grass-fed beef, and that should be free range as well. So we want our cows to be lean and healthy, eating grass, not grain, because that improves the fatty acid profile of the muscle tissue that we consume. What's also good is that if you can source more of the exotic meats. So I had a little picture of these more exotic meats, like things like venison and ostrich and zebra. These tend to be lower in toxins, because generally these are leaner, and because there's why they're safer is because that they are generally leaner, and a lot of these toxins are unfortunately fat soluble. That means they build up in the body fat of the animals, and then we are potentially exposed when we consume the muscle tissue there, because you're still going to have a little bit of the body fat left behind. and then the toxins accumulate in our body fat, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we also want to look at things like dairy and eggs. So eggs, you certainly want to get the organic variety, and or get more of the exotic types. Start experimenting with eggs like eggs from duck and goose and quail, pheasant as well. And if you choose to eat fish, and I'll talk in a few slides, I'll talk about where we can source those. If you say, well, where the heck am I going to find these? But before we move on, I just want to talk about fish here. The concern about fish is certainly mercury, and the research is pretty interesting. I was just reading a study last week showing that, in fact, our mercury exposure is maybe coming from other areas of environment, and maybe not so much fish. Now, that's only just one study, so I would still err on the side of caution and consume fish that we know are lower in mercury, and in particular the smaller fish. So the ones that I like from this list here of low mercury fish are anchovies, are good, sardines, herring. So these are some of the smaller fish. They have a shorter life cycle, and so they are not living as long. So in a sense, they don't bioaccumulate as much mercury. They're also particularly rich in omega-3 fatty acids as well, so it's good. I realize that eating organic is expensive, and especially eating high-quality meat is very expensive too. So what can you do? Well, you can simply eat less meat. Standard American diet there's actually probably an imbalance of meat intake. We should balance some of that meat intake with protein intake from plants. So beans, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and whole grains are great. I didn't mention this before, but I'll mention it now, that one whole grain in particular has gotten some studies done on it in the last couple of years, and that is rice. And so there are potential arsenic residues on rice, and so you want to make sure you get organic rice. When you get preferably organic brown rice, and when you do get the organic brown rice, you want to soak it overnight, and then dump the soaking water, and then rinse it off, and that way you can reduce the amount of residues that are on the arsenic. I've read that the rice that's farmed in California had the lowest levels of arsenic residue. This is also true for white rice as well. You wouldn't necessarily have to soak white rice overnight, but you would want to soak it for maybe for an hour or two, dump the soaking water, rinse it off, and then cook it. Then number two, avoid the dirty dozen. Make use of the environmental working group website. There's a lot of information, a lot of resources there, and I'll be talking more about that later on when we talk about personal cosmetics. If you haven't been to local farmers market in your area, you can check out these websites here. These are good resources in which, again, you can put your zip code in and see if there's any local farmers markets in your area. If that's not an option, you can always order online. There are more and more websites popping up where they can just drop food right at your doorstep. So greenland.com, eatwild.com, exoticmeatsandmore.com. Now we clean up our food. Our third resolution is to drink and cook with clean water. And I'd say the first thing you want to do is get an annual water quality report for your area. And you can simply use this website here to obtain that report. Now, say you use well water. There are products out there where you can test the quality of your water. Here's one that I identified here. This is the e-watertest.com. Excuse me. And then once you know the quality report, and you know, then you possibly will want to filter it. And there are several filters on the market to clean your water. Some of the best ones are going to be reverse osmosis and steam distillation. Carbon filters are probably the more popular ones. They're cheaper. You know, you probably know about Brita if you haven't gone into this before, but most people know about Brita, and it does a little bit of filtering, but not that much. And this is something that you can either attach to your kitchen sink, or you can actually clean the water that's going right into your house or your home, your apartment, if that's a possibility. So I just gave these here to you to research on your own. UV lights, that's interesting. That's not going to do much in the way of heavy metals, but it will reduce microbial contamination, that is bacteria. And just a word about this distillation. I've heard it over the years that people are concerned about drinking distilled water. Why? Because there's no minerals left out of it. So when you take out the heavy metals and other contaminants, you're taking out the healthy minerals as well. And it's said, or people are concerned, that drinking distilled water is going to throw off the balances in my body, and that simply isn't the case. You should really rely on getting your minerals from the foods that you eat. And again, you're going to get a whole lot of minerals if you eat beans, legumes, nuts and seeds, and whole grains. You're going to get plenty of minerals there. The amount of naturally occurring minerals in tap water is minuscule at best. So drinking distilled water isn't going to throw off kind of like the acid-base balance in your blood. Okay. Skip on the bottled water. There are really no advantages to bottled water. Really, we're just filling up our landfills with the bottles that are left behind. There are phthalates, which are endocrine disruptors in the plastic. I mean, they are starting to improve the plastic, but really the best bet is just to filter at home, and bottle it yourself in glass jars, or put into, say, a clean canteen, and you're good to go. So skip on the bottled water, and also skip on bottled sports drinks or bottled sodas and so on and so forth. They're just not necessary for a healthy diet, and it's not healthy for the planet as well. All right, so our clean food deserves clean cookware. This is our fourth resolution here. We have a stack of iron skillets, one of my favorites to use. And some of the safer materials are going to be iron, steel, glass, and clay. And iron being my favorite because it's one of the side effects of cooking with iron is that you get some residual iron in your food. So that's always good. Not so much that it's toxic, though. And they last a very long time, and they're very easy to maintain. I would recommend that you buy the skillets that are either seasoned already or you season them yourself. And that means that you lather up the iron skillet with oil, put it in the oven, you bake it, and the skillet absorbs the oil. So that when you use it in the future, the heat will allow the oils rise to the top and the iron skillet will become less sticky. It won't be as less sticky as a non-stick pan like a Teflon pan, which I'll talk about in a moment, but it will help. So if you do frying or sautéing in iron skillets and stainless steel, you want to use oils that have a high smoking point. Oils like sunflower seeds or sunflower seed oil or avocado oils. Or you can just simply use water or broth. That's even better than using oils. So you can use a little bit of broth in your skillet there and do your healthy saute or healthy stir fry in that way. I would completely avoid aluminum, aluminum pots, pans. Just the evidence for aluminum toxicity is just mounting, so just pass on the aluminum, period. Now, Teflon's okay until the surface gets compromised. And then once the surface is compromised, this is our picture of Teflon here, you have the aluminum that's just below the surface potentially leach into the foods that you're cooking. Okay, so Teflon pans are risky. I realized that newer products are coming out, so-called eco-green non-stick pans, which is kind of a variation on Teflon. And I just haven't read any of the toxicology studies yet to convince me that they are in fact in the long term safe. I'd say err on the side of caution and just do it old school, as they say, like our grandparents, great grandparents did, and just use the iron skillet and glass and clay and stainless steel as well. Okay. Now our fifth resolution, I have there's a lot we can say about food storage and handling, but I'm just going to give you the basics here. Right off the bat, you want to save your leftovers in glass or stainless steel, especially if the leftovers are still hot or warm. Heat accelerates the rate of leaching that might be, say, in plastics here. Luckily, they're starting to improve upon some of the plastics. I think it's HDPE is safer plastic, but to err on the side of caution, just use glass and stainless steel. I particularly like Tiffins, which are stainless steel lunch boxes. They're hardy, they're not glass, so they won't break if they fall, and you won't have any issues with potential phthalates leaching from the plastics. You also want to handle your leftovers wisely as well. So putting your foods into shallow containers will allow them to cool quickly. And so what we want to avoid is foods that are out in the danger zone temperature, the danger temperature zone, which is 40 degrees to 140 degrees. And within this danger zone, you have the potential for the quick overgrowth of bacteria and fungus. So we want to refrigerate our leftovers within 2 hours. Now the thing is that you can have a cumulative effect. Keep this in mind. So half hour here, 45 minutes here, an hour, 15 minutes there. You are over the 2 hour limit and you should discard the food. So if you say if you cook up food, put in shallow containers, it cools, you put it into you put it in the fridge within a half hour. You have to take a half hour off from the 2 hours. So now you have an hour and a half left. So you take the leftovers out again, and they're out for more than an hour and a half. You've already gone beyond the 2 hours in the danger zone. All right, and related here, you want to reheat the food thoroughly throughout. So the food should go above 140 degrees, generally speaking, if it's the type of food that gets reheated, especially things like animal proteins, like meat. If the food is older than 2 days, just throw it out. I get a lot of questions about this. 2 days is definitely the limit, even if it's being stored in the refrigerator. And please do not microwave food in the plastic. Again, when we increase heat, especially if the food has a lot of fat in it, we are going to increase the rate of leaching of the toxins in plastic into the foods. And in this case, it may be BPA, might be the phthalates as well. Even if it's these safer plastics, reheat food in glass. That would be best if you're using a microwave. All right, so turning away from nutrition, now we look at exercise. Now I wonder, what does exercise have to do with environmental toxicity and the impact of toxins on health? Well, the thing is that a lot of these toxins are fat soluble and they collect in the body fat, which is stored energy. Okay, so the less stored energy we have, the less fat we're toting around. That means we reduce the risk of, in a sense, being a kind of a storage facility for these fat-soluble toxins. So the research shows that. So people who are leaner tend to have less accumulation of toxins in the body. So you and your family, your children should be exercising to burn off some of that stored energy, right? So that we stay lean, and children, it's recommended by the CDC, should aim for 60 minutes or more of physical activity per day. A large portion of that should be aerobic activity, and some of the aerobic activities should be vigorous as well. So that would include running would be more vigorous. But aerobic activity can include things as simple as walking. 3 days out of the week, we should have some muscle strengthening and bone strengthening as well. So we see the child doing sit-ups, and push-ups would be good too for strengthening the muscles. Bone strengthening you would achieve with running and jumping on trampoline, so for instance. So you want to stimulate the long bone in the legs there through running or jumping. So you are wondering, well, I have a child on the spectrum or the spectrum-like behaviors, and this seems really unrealistic. There was a talk given a couple of weeks ago by Coach Dave, who works exclusively with children on the spectrum to increase their physical activity. So he has his website here, Exercise Connection. I strongly recommend that you check it out. There's some great resources there. He has books and DVDs. Now, if you go to I think it's the Johnson Center YouTube channel, we should have this talk archived there. I strongly recommend that you check it out. He has a lot of great tips. I learned a lot myself there, because even though I focus on nutrition and dietetics, I often make recommendations for exercise, and so it was even helpful to me as well. So that's Coach Dave at exerciseconnection.com. All right, number 7. Now we're kind of, in a sense, going to the immediate environment. When we start using non-toxic cleaners, there's a lot on the market now that's being marketed as kind of green cleaners, and those are okay. You can actually save a lot of money if you just make simple non-toxic cleaners at home. So I just give you some simple recipes here. A general purpose one. They cover a lot of areas in the house. Would be just combining baking soda, warm water, and a few drops of liquid soap, and that's it. If you need a floor cleaner, you can add a little bit of vinegar to that mixture. Well, actually, you wouldn't use baking soda in that mixture. And then also some lemon or orange essential oils. This is not only to make it smell nice. Actually, essential oils have antimicrobial, antibacterial properties to them. Okay, so these are very simple non-toxic cleaners. And the same thing goes for a glass cleaner. Here you do a little water and soap, and then use either vinegar or lemon juice for the acids there. Be careful of pesticides. I strongly recommend that you don't use any kind of the commercial conventional pesticides that are out there to use around the house. Believe it or not, dish soap or laundry soap with water is toxic to most bugs. Okay, so that's kind of a chemical intervention that you can utilize. More physical intervention, we do things like, I mean, if you have really bad ant hills around your home, and you can pour boiling water over the ant hills or something like that, and cover with baking soda. So that's more of a physical intervention. The other thing you can do too is to create kind of walls or barriers. These would be walls or barriers to small ants uh, with baking soda and baby powder as well. And then herbicides too. You can use some natural things like vinegar. There's corn gluten. I've even seen non-GMO corn gluten. I didn't mention non-GMO before, but I kind of did indirectly. So when you go organic, you're almost guaranteed that you're not getting genetically modified organisms in your products there. So that's certainly an issue, because with GMOs, they are genetically modified to withstand even higher levels of pesticides. And in particular, there's things like glyphosate, um, which definitely has deleterious effects on the nervous system. Okay, moving on here. So if you want to make your own herbicide, again, you see these very simple, basic ingredients: vinegar, water, and dish soap. That's it. And here's a little simple recipe for you to use. You put that in your hand pump sprayer and you just spray down your weeds. Of course, you can do more physical interventions like burning them and pulling and cutting weeds too. Weeds get a bad rap, from a nutritional perspective. They're actually very rich in minerals. Some years ago, I took a therapeutic cooking class, and my teacher was an avid forager. So one of the classes, she took us out to forage for foods, and we we pulled some weeds, and we identified an area that we know wasn't sprayed, and we pulled these weeds and brought them back, and we worked them into omelets. We worked them into baked goods. Some of it was actually pretty good. Weeds are bitter, but so that's another way of looking at weeds while we're on the topic there. Now, if you're at home, take a look down, because we're on resolution 9 here. Consider your flooring. So the best choices are your smooth surfaces, wood, and tile. Now, if you have carpets, you want to use vacuums the HEPA filters, a specific type of filter, and you want to shampoo your carpets frequently. and especially if you have carpets, you want to use indoor and outdoor shoes, because there's a lot going on out there, and in particular petroleum. You can potentially drag in a lot of petroleum with our shoes, and then that just builds up on our carpets as well. This is another reason why I recommend do not walk around barefoot. There's petroleum all over the place. I know people who like to go au naturel, and they think it's great to walk around barefoot, and it's not so great. Keep it for areas that that are clean. Like I don't know, clean places are harder and harder to find. Um, Nonetheless, if you have wooden floors, you might want to investigate, see if they're man-made wood. So that would include composite woods, right? And you want to make sure that the wood is sealed. And you want to use a non-urethane sealant like the one identified here is Caldet resin and oil finish. Nice non-toxic sealant for wood floors. Now, look up, look around you. We'll look at walls, doors, and your windows there. If you're in an older building, you want to know, is there asbestos still being used as insulation between the walls? I have a pretty wide audience here, so this may or may not apply to you, but you need to investigate this. Also, the paints. If the paint is very old, I'd recommend just painting over it. So we want to be concerned about certainly heavy metals like lead in older paint. Now, if you notice condensation on your walls, that's probably a good indicator that there is mold and mildew growing on the other side of the wall, the non-visible sides of the wall, and that can cause a whole host of problems. I've seen that in practice as well. So that's something that you would need to check out. Again, if you're a homeowner, there are services that are out there that can do the testing for you. Or if you are a renter, you need to see your landlord or see the super in your building. Again, this goes for the homeowners. Well, I guess, I mean, if you're a renter too, uh, you want to check for cracks in the basement walls. So you can buy devices to check the amount of radon that's in your basement there. So that's, even if there aren't cracks in the walls, it's something that you might want to do anyway. All right, moving on. Our 11th resolution here. We want to take a look at the ventilation and heating. This often gets overlooked. And start with the bathroom because we want to avoid excess moisture for the same reason we want to avoid condensation on the walls. And that is to avoid buildup of mold and mildew, of course, and also bacteria as well. If you use dry cleaners, that use conventional detergents, you want to make sure you air out those clothes before you bring them into the house, so you can off gas them outside safely. Um, Better yet, just it's use a eco-friendly dry cleaner. Even better yet, you can buy 100% wool clothing, and you really don't need to clean 100% wool clothing. It's wool is actually antimicrobial because it doesn't retain a lot of moisture, so you can just let it sit. Excuse me, you just let it. You put it on the hanger and just let it sit and let it air out, and it should be fine. Uh, and actually the fabrics will last longer the less you dry clean them. I'll talk a little bit more about clothes in the next few slides. Uh, Related to that, you can reduce moisture in your bedroom closets by using cedar chips, cedar blocks, and even cedar hangers on your clothes. Again, that would be good for reducing moisture in your clothes, but also reducing moisture in general. And then finally, you should absolutely positively have a check filter and cleaning schedule of your air conditioning system. Also, you want to ensure, if you don't know, you should make sure that your ducts are sealed all throughout the system. So that's going to look different depending on what your living situation is like. In our final resolution, we're going to talk about electronics, toys, and clothes and personal cleaners. So I listed some companies here that minimize flame retardants. You want to be careful of those. So there's major players there. I think a lot of us use some of these companies' products. And some of those products include, video equipment, remote controls, scanners, photocopiers, fax machines, certainly mobile phones. So that's what I'm talking about there. And then in our cars, in our buses, and so on and so forth, you want to be careful of the fabrics and plastics and electronics there as well. So if you're in the market for a new car, that's something that you want to research. And this also includes household items, kitchen appliances, fans, heaters, curtains, drapes, water heaters, lamp sockets. There's a lot of things to be mindful about. I didn't talk about crock pots. I didn't talk about rice steamers, things like that. A lot of times the baskets are made out of aluminum. So you want to look for the best alternatives there. So another thing you can do some research and work on. Non-toxic toys. You want to go for toys that are labeled PVC free. It's best to choose the solid wood over plastic and pressed wood toys, and also toys that are made with organic cotton and colored with non-toxic dyes as well. That's very important. There's more and more companies popping up there. I identified these few. These look pretty good to me. There's Holgate Toy and Tumbleweed Woodworks and Play Store Toys. Mama's Earth as well. Again, these slides will be available to you if you want to use this as a reference. Okay. Now onto non-toxic personal care products. Shampoos and soaps. Dr. Bronner still is one of the cleanest products out there. You can even make your own shampoos and soaps. That's pretty simple too. I didn't include it here. I figured at this point you're probably overwhelmed with all the information I kind of went over. But it's not very difficult to make your own soap. Soap is really just a combination of olive oil, coconut oil that's minimally processed, and then you add one or two other natural ingredients to it, and voila, you have your shampoo or you have your soap. You can also make your own shaving cream as well. You know, so those are options too, in which you can make these products at home. Now, deodorants, I'd say the best product out there is mineral crystals. Just really, it's just the cleanest product out there. With deodorants, we do know that we want to stay away from deodorants that have aluminum in them. And a lot of times, even the aluminum-free deodorants are irritating to the skin. And I find that adults and children may be reactive to some of the ingredients that are in deodorant. So keep it simple. Just use mineral crystals. Toothpaste. Actually, toothpaste really, it's not really necessary. So there are two things that work here when we brush our teeth. It's the physical action of just moving the brush throughout our mouth and our teeth, and that just moves the bacteria around. The bacteria don't like the movements. They want things to stay still. So just brushing alone is very helpful. Now we use something like baking soda. You just pour a little baking soda on the toothpaste, and you can cut down the acids in the mouth. So baking soda is basic, so it kind of neutralizes acids. So that's good too. So when your mouth becomes acidic, the enamel of teeth kind of gets soft, and that's where you have potential for demineralization or the formation of cavities. If you're using if you're looking for lotions and creams to moisturize your skin, I would simply just use coconut oil. Straight up coconut oil. You can use unrefined coconut oil. Again, what we put on our skin, I didn't mention this before actually, I should have, but what we put on our skin is not unlike what we put in our mouth. We do absorb a lot through our skin. So keep that in mind. You use organic coconut oil. You can use organic olive oil, sunflower seed oil, sesame seed oil, and the skin does a wonderful job. You can also use it as a hair moisturizer as well in small amounts. One thing you can do is you put oil on your skin, you put it on your hair, and then you go into the shower and wash it out. And some of the oil residue stays behind, and so your skin stays moisturized. I got into this, gosh, in the early to mid 90s, and at the time there wasn't a lot of options. You have to go through these little health food stores out of the way to find, just non-toxic things like sunscreens. So Kiss My Face, Aubrey Organics, they've been around for a long time. There are plenty of products on the market that provide us with non-toxic sunscreens. I did want to mention clothes. I have some children and adults who are very sensitive to conventionally grown cotton. So if you think that's a potential risk for you or your family, go with buying organic cotton. It's also better for the environment as well. So just to recap here, let's see how we're doing on time. Oh, we're doing very good on time here. We have a few minutes left for questions. Number one, you want to find a functional medicine practitioner. You want to eat clean, drink clean, cook clean. You want to handle and storage your food in a very clean way. You want to stay lean with exercise, so you minimize the amount of fat that you're toting around so that you can minimize the amount of toxins that you're potentially storing. Use non-toxic cleaners, minimize your pesticide use. You want to check out your floors, walls, doors, windows. You want to check out your ventilation and heating systems, and you also want to look at the electronics, toys, and personal care products. So there's a lot more I could have talked about here, but these are some of the more important things that we can address on an individual basis and in our immediate environment. There are a lot of great resources out there. One of them is this one. I like this one, the Safe Shopper's Bible, Consumer's Guide to Non-Toxic Household Product Cosmetics and Foods. So that's good. And also, I love that. I just discovered this a few months ago and been utilizing this. This is the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database. And you can put in specific products, and the database will search for that product and will give you a score, and it will give you and it'll tell you how hazardous is this product, and it'll give you actual breakdown. So in this case, I did a snapshot of the unscented baby version of the Dr. Bronner's liquid soap, and the score is of 1, which is actually very good. So it's a low risk involved here, and then they give you the breakdown of the individual ingredients and what the concerns are. You know, so there's a very low concern for cancer there. And for some people, there might be some use restrictions based on sensitivities to some of the ingredients there. So this is really great. So you can start researching products that you have now. And I was actually surprised where some of the products that were sold that were marketed as being green and eco-friendly actually didn't score so well. So take advantage of EWG's Skin Deep Cosmetics database. All right, so if there's any questions, I'm going to look at those right now. Okay, so first question, do you know if functional medicine is practiced in Israel? I was actually, last year I was in Jerusalem presenting research at an autism conference there, and there were functional medicine practitioners. Actually, there was a colleague of mine that I ran into that I went to school with, and I can't remember her name, but they are there, and she's a nutritionist dietitian, and she was one of the exhibitors there. And so yes, I think she was practicing in Tel Aviv. So you probably do a Google search there, and she might be a good place to start. She's not a physician, but she might direct you in the right direction there. For the life of me, I just can't remember her name, but she's definitely there. She's either in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. Okay, local produce can be grown with pesticides. Very true. Wouldn't it be best to buy organic over local, even if the organic came from far away? Yes, that is always the best. Is the advantage of local that it's fresh, that has more nutrients? Yes, that's true, and not really about pesticide issues. I'm glad you brought this up because I meant to talk about this. So unfortunately, organic certification is very expensive. So that excludes small farms who have a low revenue, even though they meet the criteria for certification. So what's nice is that you can actually talk to someone if they're locally and say, okay, do you use pesticides? What kind of pesticides do you use? Right at the farmer's market. So I'm glad you brought that up. So just because it's certified organic, it doesn't mean that it's not clean. So locally you can inquire about that, or it's easier. What about aluminum foil? You still have the same risks there. You want to be really careful with aluminum foil. I would use other ways. I don't know what you had in mind with aluminum foil. Certainly, you wouldn't want to bake potatoes in aluminum foil or anything like that, especially when you're applying heat to it. So, good question. What is the frequency for shampooing carpets? That's a good question. So once a year, once a month, once a week? Depends. Are you using indoor-outdoor shoes? Is there a lot of foot traffic? When I was researching this, they were recommending anywhere from once a week to once a month. I think I wouldn't go longer than that, though. It's an alternative to cedar chips. We can use it in a closet. I'm allergic to cedar. I can't think of any offhand. That's a good question. I don't know to that one. So I don't know if there's an alternative to cedar chips to reduce moisture in the closets, considering this person is allergic to cedar. Okay, let's see if there are any more questions. All really great questions.